The first time that I moved to Miami, it didn't work out for me, and I had no idea that it was going to launch me into the season of my life that I had always dreamt of living in. This is your sign that you can change your life no matter where you currently are, no matter what has happened, no matter what decisions that you've made. You can bounce back from anything and you can absolutely change your life. When I decided to confront what decisions I made in the lowest point in my life and start using it as a tool to launch me into everything that I've ever wanted. That is when my life started to shift, and it shifted very quickly. I'm talking about 6 months. I went from living in a rundown apartment in Tampa, unhappy, depressed, just overall knowing that I was not living in my own potential, to now living in my dream high rise back in Miami, building the life that I intended to build the first time that I moved here. The world is not against us. We are not a victim. There's absolutely nothing and no one that can keep us from what we want in our life. But a lot of times, the truth is, we need to be willing to look in the mirror and turn inward in order to create the changes in our life that we've always wanted. And when I first moved here to Miami, I did not have my priorities straight. I was partying, going out. I was just making a lot of decisions that were actually keeping me from where I wanted to be because I was afraid to look in the mirror. I was afraid to confront myself and understand that I was the only thing that was in the way of everything that I'd ever wanted. And there came that moment in my life where I had lost everything. I had to move away, I had to restart over again. And that is when I started to really question myself and realize that I was the thing in the way of achieving the goals that I had intended to achieve when I originally moved to Miami. I would say about a year and a half after I ended up moving and leaving Miami, that I started to look in the mirror and really question myself and ask myself what put me here, what habits do I have? How am I approaching my life? Who am I being every single day? And why am I here? How did I even get here? We are the determining factor of everything in our life. If we are happy with where we are, it is because of us. If we are unhappy, it is also because of us. And we need to be willing to turn inward and do the inner work on ourselves and pause for a season of our life in order to start creating everything that we've ever wanted. And that is exactly what I had to do, and it didn't hit me for a while. When I first moved out of here, I was devastated, but I was also very exhausted. I was in a point in my life where I'm like, oh my gosh, like I need to start over. I've made all these decisions that have put me here, and I just need change. And it was through my own habits and the way that I was approaching my life that was keeping me stuck in this in between phase of achieving some things that I wanted, aka originally moving to where I wanted to be, but also not living the life that I imagined myself living here. And so there was a reason why I had certain things and other things I didn't have. And it all came down to who I was being every single day and what I was engaging with. And like I said, when I originally moved here, I was partying all the time. I didn't have my priorities straight. I wasn't focused on my career. I wasn't building long term sustainable habits that would allow me to embrace this lifestyle the best I could. And that is why I became exhausted with it. That's why I hit a low point, and that's why I ended up having to start over. And trust me, it was the hardest place to be in after I moved away from here because for a while I was depressed. I didn't want to confront myself. I was avoiding myself. I was just isolating from all the work that I needed to do. It really hit me one day that I was like, if I ever want to get to where I want to be in my life, I need to confront myself. I need to look in the mirror and realize, who am I being every single day? What habits got me here? What am I choosing in my life that is keeping me stuck or keeping me in limbo from where I want to be? I think it was November of 2024 where I really started to be like, you know what? I'm tired of not living the life that I want to be living. I'm tired of not living in my own potential. Something needs to change in my life. And it was from that moment that I decided I'm going to leave the Tampa area and I'm going to move back to Miami. And I'm determined to make this happen for myself. And within the same month, a lot of things started to unfold in my life that actually allowed me to move back to Miami. And when I first moved back here, I was staying in Airbnb, and I spent 6 months of my life getting my life together, changing my habits, changing the way that I approached my life. And 6 months later, by May of 2025, this year, I was moving into my dream high rise apartment. The reason that I was able to change the direction of my life in just 6 months was because not only was I focused, but I was no longer avoiding the part of my life that got me in that point. The lowest point of my life was actually building the version of me that I had always wanted, and I needed to learn to embrace that. And we can only level up or become a better version of ourselves or achieve the things that we want when we learn to understand that lower moments in our life, when we're feeling depressed, we're not where we want to be, or we feel like we are lacking in our own potential, those specific moments are trying to teach us something very valuable that is actually going to put us in the best place in our life. It was what I was choosing every single day. I was choosing comfortability. I was choosing habits that were keeping me stuck. I was choosing a version of myself that was no longer serving me. And I had to be willing to not only let go of that old self and no longer identify with her, but I also had to learn from her and I had to use her as a tool to start building the life that I had wanted to build for myself. And yes, it took a period of my life that I had to be strict. I needed more discipline. I needed to make better choices overall. And that is exactly what allowed me to start creating the results that I'd wanted in such a short amount of time. I could have easily used that point in my life to victimize myself or to continue to hold myself back from what I truly wanted. But instead, I just learned from it because the lowest point in our life is not meant to make us depressed or sad or keep us from where we want to be. It is meant to help us build a version of ourselves that is able to sustain the life that we are dreaming of building. I know from my experience that low season in my life was actually trying to open up my eyes to a bigger issue, that I was avoiding the inner work of myself. I was just trying to take action. There were mindset beliefs that I had to be willing to let go of. There were habits that I was very comfortable with for a long time. People I was surrounding myself with, choices I was making in my own professional life or even personal goals that I knew weren't serving me anymore, but I was holding on to them. And the more I held on to them, the more I was keeping myself away from a life that was going to fulfill me, was more meaningful, and just giving me that purpose that I was craving. What doesn't work out for us is always going to force us to look inward. And the more that we avoid that, the more that we are going to stay stagnant in our life, that we are not going to allow ourselves to start achieving what we want. There is not a huge gap from the lowest version of ourselves and the highest version of ourselves. The only thing in the in between is the inner work and just having that discipline to make decisions that are going to better ourselves. If you're in a season in your life where you feel like you're just not where you want to be, I want you to take this as a sign that you are on the right path. And the only thing that is missing from allowing you to start embracing the goals and the dreams that you've always envisioned for yourself is just your ability to no longer identify with a version of yourself that doesn't serve you anymore. I think a lot of times we think that change is just this massive shift in our life, but really it just comes down to who we choose to be every single day and the small habits that we adopt. And if we learn to be more gracious and patient with ourselves and start making small shifts in our life, we're going to see those bigger results. And that is exactly what allowed me to go from an apartment that I hated living in, that I just felt unsafe, and it just really represented a version of myself that I no longer wanted to be, to now living in my dream high rise apartment in Miami. And I have to give credit to that version of myself because if I wasn't willing to confront her or to look in the mirror and stop avoiding who I was being, I wouldn't be at this point in my life. It is okay to hit a low point. It is okay to not be where we want to be, but we can't sit in that version of ourselves. We can't stay there because that's exactly what is going to continue to keep us from a life that we cannot stop dreaming about. Instead of avoiding the decisions that you know put you in that point in your life that you do not want to be in anymore, I encourage you to confront them and start being very real and honest with yourself. Writing down every single situation where you felt like something went wrong or you made a mistake or you stayed tied to a version of yourself that you knew wasn't serving you anymore. Once you start to identify those things and start to confront them, it is going to allow you to just have this clear vision in your mind of who you need to start showing up as in your life and what needs to change and what you need to release. And although the first time that I moved to Miami, it didn't work out for me and I truly messed up my life, instead of avoiding it, I learned from it and I used it to launch me into the season of my life that I wanted to create for myself. And if I never went through that, I wouldn't be able to embrace this version of myself. And that is why I'm trying to tell you everything that you are going through and experiencing, if you are unhappy with yourself, it is okay and it is for a reason. No longer avoiding the changes that you need to make in your life. And it doesn't take a long time to change your life. It just requires you to be vulnerable with yourself. You have to be willing to admit that you have made mistakes, that you have made choices in your life that are keeping you from a life that you want to be living. It's only in the times that we are honest with ourselves and open about the mistakes, the choices, the decisions that we've made contributed to a version of ourselves that we no longer wanted to be. That is when our life starts to transform. We start to become a brand new version of ourselves. We start to see results in our life that we have always wanted because we're not afraid to hold ourselves accountable and be disciplined towards getting exactly what we want. My low point launched me into the season of my life that I had always wanted, but only when I started to allow it to. And what isn't working for us is always working for us. And I think it's really important to adopt that mindset shift that nothing is against us, we're not a victim, and everything is always building the life that we want. And we need to use everything that we experience, everything that we go through, all the mistakes that we made as a tool to get exactly what we want. This type of mindset and approach changed my life in such a short amount of time, and I know if you apply it, it will change your life as well. You can continue to sit and be depressed and sad that you are not where you want to be in your life, or you can show up for yourself. You can start holding yourself accountable. You can start acknowledging what needs to change in order for you to start building the life that you keep envisioning for yourself. I'm not afraid to say that I messed up my life because it built the life that I'd always wanted. Now I sit in results that my younger self used to pray to have. That version of me used to feel like this would never happen, that it was impossible, but all it required of me was to just show up for myself, to look in the mirror, to stop avoiding myself, and to spend a period of isolation just completely leveling up and rebranding who I am. You deserve to build a life that actually reflects your own potential. And if you want to keep becoming the highest version of yourself, showing up brand new, rebranding yourself, then I will see you in the next video.